comes to my head is whatever comes to my head. Usually I have an order, but because I haven't been on in a while, I picked a couple TV shows out and just decided I'm just going to start talking about them. Just going to start talking about them. Now, let's talk about a disappointment. Um, this is last week's episode of The Walking Dead. Um, wow. I was horribly disappointed with the beginning of last week's episode of The Walking Dead, and I'll give you one reason why, and I'm sure everybody knows it. I'll hit this button, but I really don't. You know what? I'm not even going to hit the spoiler alert because I'm so upset about this. All right, so here it is. For those of you who have not seen last week's Walking Dead, tonight, Sunday, is the mid-season finale until February. But last week's episode, at the very beginning, we found out that Glenn is alive. And we saw how it happened. Now, I'm not upset at the fact that he's alive. What I'm upset about is that the people, the powers that be behind The Walking Dead, have gotten so caught up in trying to mess with their viewers and trying to outthink us and outsmart us that they completely lost the element of surprise when it came to revealing this this tidbit of information. They should have, if I had any say in how they do their things. Now, usually The Walking Dead, they're great in letting us know what happens when something major like that happens. Or like right when there's a cliffhanger, they let us know, not the next week, maybe not the next week, but definitely like the second week after, definitely let us know what is like they answer the questions. Or if it's a season finale, they answer it in the season premiere. Or mid-season finale, they answer it in the mid-season premiere. They do it in a timely fashion, except for this one time. And I gotta say, it was such a lackluster moment. For me, it was basically like, great, Glenn's alive. Let's move on. And he didn't even get to he didn't even get back to Alexandria. Like, he just released a couple balloons. But we'll get to that in a second. So Glenn is alive. Whoop-de-freaking-do. We find out that, yes, he did indeed in fact hide underneath, as the Call of the Duty broski said 2 weeks ago when we were on, when I was talking to him in chat, said that he was hiding under the dumpster. Great, wonderful. You did it, Glenn. You beat the odds. You know, everybody's happy for you. But Walking Dead, powers that be, you done messed up. You waited way too long to give us this information, almost to the point where we are not excited at all for what has happened, nor do we care. What the fact of the matter is, the fact of the matter is, we are still talking about it, but only to the point of we are talking about how upset we are by it. And it gets people like me discussing it now of like how bleh it was. If it were up to me, I think they should have did it. They should have done it at the end of the Maggie episode, where Maggie, Glenn's wife, who's pregnant with his child, sets out to go find Glenn, decides to turn back and just says, you know what? I'm going to watch because he's going to come here. Then what they should have done, fade to black, fade back up, and played the first 3 minutes of last week's episode where you see him fall, you see him crawl under the dumpster, you see him fend off the walkers, you see the walkers walk away, and then they should have fade to black as soon as that first water bottle hit the ground and he was going to drink it. So that would have been the end of the episode. Then you could have done last week's episode um, with the next week's episode with Abraham, Sasha, and Daryl. Could have done that, and then you could have had last week's episode start up with him still underneath the dumpster. Maybe, maybe the audio tracks over it, and people dropping, and Enid finally coming in and dropping all that. And then start the episode the way you did. But I think you should have taken the first 2 to 3 minutes that revealed the fate of Glenn, tacked it on the end of the Maggie episode, and then brought it all together in last week's episode as you guys did. Because much to say that the Glenn reveal at the beginning of the episode was sufficient enough to get us through it and to finally answer us. Plus, you guys announced the name of whatchamacallit. You announced a casting decision for the guy in the comics who apparently kills Glenn in the comics. So you guys, we knew that he was going to be alive. I mean, yes, I was playing devil's advocate and saying that he was dead and that there was no way to do it and that they're just going to write off their new thing. But hey, I was wrong. Glenn is alive. But I got to say this, is that you guys just waited too long. As far as the rest of the episode goes, there's still that divide between the original people of Alexandria and Rick and his crew. Now, Rick and his crew, they're trying to stay positive. They all think that Glenn and Enid and Daryl, Abraham, and Sasha are on their way back. But now what they have to think of is how to get the moat of walkers around Alexandria away from Alexandria, so that when these new when the cast members do come back from their different fates, they have pretty much a nice drawbridge to go right through it. Now, Spencer, who's Deanna's son, and I'd like to say he's the village idiot, because it was his fault that the wolves found Alexandria and attacked it at the beginning of the season. And also he decides to do something completely stupid and decides to tightrope it out of Alexandria. Tightrope it out of Alexandria and nearly gets himself killed, nearly gets a couple of other people killed, including Rick. And guess what? Rick don't like that. Rick don't like that one bit. So Rick is kind of taking a forceful hand, and he's taking the leadership away from Deanna, and he's putting it onto himself, but only because he thinks he knows how to properly run Alexandria for what's about to come. And he doesn't really tell us what is about to come. I mean, we can only suspect. The wolves will come back in stronger numbers. The walkers will get through the wall, but nobody is prepared. And there are some people that want to be prepared. There are some people that want to be on Rick's side, yet they've just been so veiled by Deanna and her excuse me, by Deanna and her her like fantasy type of we have a village, we're going to live together type mentality, that they're more afraid and they more or less want to think first and want to find the easiest and less violent way to get out of their situation. Whereas Rick and his crew have seen the worst of the worst. And no, you really have to react first, but react intelligently, which sometimes does, I mean, that it's almost sounds like it's an oxymoron, where Rick is, where like yes, you're meant to act first, but not necessarily shoot first. Like, act as in plan, so that when you do act, it's a planned act kind of thing. I don't know if that really makes sense. But it's definitely not if you see a walker shoot first. Obviously not, because when there's one walker, there might be a group of them. And if you shoot, you're going to make noise, which means that the more walkers, which would entice more walkers to come, and it might force, it might bring more walkers, and then you have a bigger headache. You have more to shoot, and then, more more problems on your hand than what you need to do. But you should have maybe a melee weapon on them. There are a lot of things that these people of Alexandria need to know, including some of the people that were scavengers, went out to find people. They think they know a lot from going out there, but they haven't been in the proverbial crap that Rick and his people have been in, because they've always had a mission and they've always had a plan. Fall back, whoever gets lost gets lost. I mean, they haven't had to deal with, and maybe they did, but they really haven't had to deal with a lot of the people that Rick and his crew had to deal with. So, but there's also the fact of, if we, if Rick were to train all these people, then there could be an uprising too. That maybe some of these people get so fed up that they decide to stage a coup and overthrow Rick. And that could go horribly south, because then you'll have Rick's crew against their crew. And it's really an upshot. You never know what people are going to do in dire situations like a coup, or what we saw at the end of last week's episode with the steeple of the church falling and knocking down the fence. So I'm sure this week's episode is definitely going to be a fallout from that, because that town is about to get overrun by walkers, and it's not going to be pretty. And some people, there's going to be a lot of bad decisions and a lot of problems. But anyway, The Walking Dead, and then alongside with everything that's been going on, Carol follows Morgan, who enlisted the new doctor to come help him with the wolf leader that he has locked away in his empty apartment. And Carol confronts Morgan. And Morgan is trying so hard to take the teachings that we saw him learn in earlier episodes and stay true. He really, really, really wants this to be his new niche. He really, really just wants to be at zen, at peace. He wants everybody to know that he is completely and utterly in control of everything. However, his buttons are being pushed since he's joined back with Rick and the crew of Alexandria, both with the wolf attack and with the whole Walker Quarry plan going to absolute crap. So Morgan's got a lot of moral dilemma coming at him, and now he's being accused of whatever with Carol. And I gotta say, Carol is starting to annoy me. I mean, she was trying so hard to bring back the Susie homebaker that she was prior to all of the events of The Walking Dead happening. And then, of course, when her husband died, she became the survivalist along with Rick's group, because that's what she needed to be when she, in order for her to survive. She had to switch from Susie homemaker to to being a survivalist. Now she had the opportunity of coming back to this town and switching and trying to live the Susie homemaker slash survivalist life. And she was kind of going from a leadership position back to a more subdued position. Now, she was the one who was always teaching the kids how to do everything. But she now is taking a step back and is more of a caretaker for Judith. And, you know, if asked by Deanna, she would have taught people how to do things. But for right now, she really doesn't trust Morgan, which is okay because he is an outsider. And, you know, they don't really trust outsiders all that much. But she's really starting to get, like, on the untrustworthy annoyance type side. And I really don't know how to feel about that. Now, I can't wait to see what happens on tonight's episode of The Walking Dead. It should be good. Most of their season finales are good, in the fact that something crazy happens. Now, hopefully they'll be able to redeem themselves from the whole Glenn situation from last week. However, I know it was a huge reveal that we were waiting for, and they were really trying to steer us off the tracks of hey Weenie, what's up Weenie? Steer us off the tracks of whether or not he was alive or dead, taking his name off of the opening credits, you know, swearing him to secrecy, which is what a lot of studios are doing these days. But I think they just waited too long to do it. They could have done everything that they did except for waiting too long. And we almost forgot about Enid too. Like, she disappeared during the wolf attack, and the only real times we heard any mention of her was every time Carl and Ron decided to fight with each other. And because their fight is like the worst fight in ever the human existence of television, nobody really cared about Enid because we didn't really care about Carl or Ron. An update in their storyline: Ron was learning how to shoot from Rick, and Rick gave him an empty gun to carry around and to get the feeling as to what it's like to have a gun on your waist. And he goes in and he steals a couple bullets because he really wants to feel how a gun feels when it's loaded. And we saw him. We also, like, at the end, towards the end of last week's episode, we did see him following Carl before the ending of the episode, before the church collapse. We did see at the end of the episode him following Carl, but then as we were watching the steeple fall into Alexandria, like, you saw a shot of Carl and Carl ran away, but you didn't see Ron. So it was like, did that shot get thrown out onto the cutting room floor? Like, where was Ron? I mean, he was following Carl. Did he all of a sudden, like, oh crap, I have to go to the bathroom, and then, like, skitter off? I mean, you guys, like, I don't know what went wrong with this episode, but I think you just cut up whatever you could cut up and just put it together, and we're like, all right, we got an episode for right before the mid-season finale. We can't do the Glenn thing for the mid-season finale. But, like, where did Ron go? I mean, maybe on tonight's episode we'll see what happened. But I do have to say that I was a little too very disappointed in that whole thing as well, where it's like, you have a shot, all right, you see Carl, he's He's walking down, and then in the background you see Ron, and then all of a sudden, steeple's falling. You see Carl sitting there. No Ron whatsoever. Um, okay, whatever. Do what you need to do. I mean, I hope you kind of do make up for last week's episode tonight. Yeah. So that was last week's Walking Dead. I mean, it's a regular Walking Dead episode, but you kind of lost me with the whole Glenn reveal and all that kind of shenanigans and stuff like that. And it is what it is. It absolutely is what it is. Now, let's go on to this past Monday. Why not? Why not, right? Yeah, this past Monday. We will talk about Gotham. Now, I didn't get to watch Supergirl, but I did get to see Gotham. Maybe I'll do a double Supergirl episode on Wednesday. Gotham last week, the episode was entitled Son of Gotham, and we all know who that is. For those of you who don't, it is Bruce. Bruce Wayne is considered the son of Gotham because Bruce's father did so much for Gotham that when Bruce's parents were killed, he became kind of the son of Gotham. Like, he became the most reveled son of the city. Now, we know that the Dumas clan has returned to Gotham, looking for revenge on the Wayne family for a killing that happened centuries ago. So that just means one thing, that the Dumas family really knows how to hold a grudge, almost as bad as a high schooler. We saw that Theo Galaven is a Dumas, and he actually revealed it in this past week's episode to Gordon, after being acquitted for kidnapping the former mayor, becoming mayor himself. So Theo Galaven is out of prison. The original mayor of Gotham, I think his name was like Thomas something. Anyway, he's a ninny, and Richard Kind, if I ever find you, I might slap you. I might slap you across the face because your character is such a ninny. Ninny. But anyway, you get kidnapped and you can't even like point out your kidnapper. Come on. Anyway, Gordon is slipping into his dark ways as more villains come to Gotham, and hopefully more villains will come to Gotham. I cannot wait. Now, tomorrow night is the mid-season finale, so again, we're hoping something great for that. And if that episode is not as good as it's supposed to be, there is the Batman vs. Superman premiere or sneak peek or whatever they're calling it coming out that week as well. Jim Gordon, Captain Barnes is back. Welcome back, Captain Barnes. He had suffered an injury, as you might not have known. Captain Barnes, played by Michael Chiklis, suffered an injury at the hands of the assassins' attacks on Jim Gordon while they were investigating Theo Galavan's apartment a couple episodes ago. So, welcome back, Captain Barnes. And, he's still the rough and tough guy. Sends Gordon out on another investigation. Theo Galavan's going to court. We're taking care of everything. Don't worry about it. Go on with your lives. Well, it turns out that the case that Gordon was given, Theo is tied to the Theo Galaven investigation, so he's right back in it. And they discover that these monk-type people / the Dumas family have been going around killing these people who are doing wrong things. Like they kidnapped and eventually killed a purse snatcher. They went into a former temple of theirs and went on a killing spree and killed patrons of a Asian persuasion type bar, type club. If you don't know what Asian persuasion is, it is not Chinese food. But the Dumas are going around killing those who they think are poisoning the city. They are cleansing the city, is what they keep telling people. And upon their investigation, Gordon and his partner find out that these people are going underground and using an underground system. So upon chasing them underground, they discover their kind of like little lair and kind of cool stuff like that. And yeah, it's interesting. This whole storyline with like this religious group coming in to like cleanse this town. They really just want to rid it of the Waynes, who they think is the poison in the town, are the Waynes. So I wouldn't be surprised if in this TV show they come to reveal that they are actually responsible for Bruce's parents' death, which coincidentally, during this episode, Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle decide to play a fast one on Silver St. Cloud, and they hire a thug of sorts named Tommy the Knife, who's played by Tommy Flanagan, who is in Sons of Anarchy as Chibs. So Chibs is back. Hire him to kidnap both Silver St. Cloud and Bruce Wayne in order to divulge the information of who killed Bruce's parents. It was actually a good twist because I really didn't think that Bruce had it in him. And I think this episode really tried to steer you in that direction where you're like, Bruce is still young, doesn't have that mentality of that he wants to rid the evil of the city, and he's a little too trustworthy. And I think that what's her face, Selina Kyle, is trying to show Bruce Wayne that Gotham is not as innocent as he thinks, and that he needs to think on a broader spectrum, and that he needs to trust less, including her, because she's probably not as trustworthy as she claims to be with him, even though she really does seem to care about him. So Tommy the Knife Tom the Knife is actually I guess one of her buddies. So it gives you kind of perspective of how they want this Bruce character to go. That like he's using anything and everything that he can to try to get the information that he wants for being, although he's still at a very young age, and he doesn't necessarily know that down the line he's going to be a bigger a bigger asset to Gotham City than he is now. And I mean, he's young, and this just happened to him. So if you were young and you had his type of money and resources, of course, you would only want to focus on your family. But Selena Kyle is trying to let him know that this is bigger than just your parents. This is Gotham. And the dynamic of this episode really puts forth, hopefully we get to see a little bit more of the villains, because right now it's focusing a lot around Theo Galaven and the Dumas clan, which the Dumas clan just came in, so obviously they'll play a big part in the next episode of cleansing Gotham City. Now, Theo finally gets what he's looking for. At the end of the episode, he gets Bruce Wayne. He gets the son of Gotham. Before Theo does that, he kidnaps Bruce, and now that Theo's a free man, decides to take his liberties on showing Bruce exactly what type of person Theo Galaven really is. And, you know, he's quicker, he's faster, he's more hands-on than what he's led to be in the beginning of this season. So it's all very interesting. Yet the person that comes to save Bruce is completely surprising, as it is the Penguin, who Mayor James, while he was on the stand, pointed out that Penguin was the one who kidnapped him and put him in a box and stuff. So it's interesting, because maybe we'll see Gordon working with the Penguin again to bring down the Saint Dumas clan. We will see. We will see. We also Leslie, who is Jim Gordon's current girlfriend, maybe on the outs girlfriend, she is a little suspicious when Kristen Kringle isn't around, and Mr. Riddler, Mr. Nigma, is kind of putting a shadow over her eyes, saying that she had skipped town with the previous officer that she was dating, who was very abusive to her. So again, we're seeing the mending and the changing and the downfall of Edward Nigma into the Riddler, which is going to be very interesting, to say the least, when we finally hopefully get to see him as a villain. I know this is like a prequel to Batman and Gotham and all that, but there's got to be some villain in it. We also were reintroduced to Harvey Dent, who's Two-Face. Oh my god, all the villains are there. They just need to be the villains. It's like, you call it the rise of the villains, and it's like, you're playing with my heartstrings with all these villains that aren't villains yet. So it's absolutely crazy. So maybe tonight we'll see if Gordon has to cross the line in order to defeat Galaven or subdue Galaven. Maybe we'll see another connection to this Indian Hill thing, and maybe see a future with Doctor Strange and Mr. Freeze. Again, they were casted earlier this month, but those episodes haven't been taped yet, so they're going to be back. Excuse me. They're going to be back in the second part of the season. There is a lot to be set up in this mid-season finale, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see it. So yeah, so that was